Module 1, an introduction of the ESG criteria. In this module, participants will gain an overview of the E, the S, and the G criteria.
This is a very basic activity just to warm you up. There are no points for this, but I am hoping some of you will do this exercise because it will help you think about what you are about to learn. You are requested to look up news regarding Twitter, particularly news since March 2020, and go through some of the steps they have taken in order to be more relevant and have a more positive impact in the society. Twitter does not call this as ESG integration, but the steps they have taken do qualify as ESG integration practices.
What are the ESG criteria? That is what is the E, the S, the G. E is for environment, to ensure environmental sustainability through all activities. S is for social, to protect and champion human rights through all business activities. G is for corporate governance. Governance refers to the systems in place within the organization to ensure that the company functions as a better corporate citizen.
E is for environment. When you talk about the environment, these are some of the buzzwords you will hear. Water sustainability, for example, then again biodiversity, greenhouse gas emissions, etc. I have just discussed some of the topics you will hear about in this field. Biodiversity relates to the loss and preservation of flora and fauna species on Earth. Topics like the recent case of diminishing Amazon rainforest or other any rainforest for that matter, problems like overfishing, problems like disappearance of species, etc. All of these can disrupt the ecological balance of an area and disrupt industry as well. Next is water sustainability. It refers to the usage of water in industries such as nuclear electricity production, textiles, buildings and construction, etc. Everything from savings in water to wastewater management, etc., are important topics here. For example, green buildings. Traditionally, cement buildings have had a lot of water consumption. Savings Saving water in such cases is a matter that is not just about water equity, but in the society, but also about the financial. Uh, it's also a financial topic talking point. Hence, green building assessments they also include the amount of water that you're using in a building. Tomorrow, if there's a regulation regarding using water in a building, your uh, most companies in this industry will suffer. So therefore, having an ESG roadmap is not just about doing better for the society, but it is also about taking these risks such as climate change and etc. very seriously so that your industry suddenly doesn't shut down because you did not anticipate some of the regulations that might, or some of the risks or downfalls that might be coming towards your industry. So, one way of reducing water consumption is by replacing cement with uh, other materials such as biochar, etc. This these materials require significantly lower consumption of water. So, you would get ESG points for that. Similarly, there are greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, ecological footprint. All these are very related. And in this area, this area is also related to the clean development mechanism and carbon taxation, etc. Greenhouse gases, if I must tell you, are gases that form a blanket around the earth and therefore trap the heat within, in a very simple words, they trap the heat in the atmosphere and lead to extreme climatic conditions, as you will probably read about in the coming few days. Next, moving on.
Everything from consumer rights to cybersecurity to indigenous people rights to dealing with racial relations can be included in the social category. Evaluating on a company based on the social category is one of the most difficult tasks in ESG evaluation or ESG integration. For more details, I'd recommend that you visit the website for International Finance Corporation. They have given guidelines on this topic extremely well. I'm just discussing a few of the hottest topics discussed in the social category. First is diversity and inclusion in products and services. For example, makeup brands are now increasingly catering to the darker shades of brown. Most of makeup brands are Eurocentric and they did not have makeup designed for darker skins until very recently. The recent push for inclusion in products has changed that. Next, land acquisition and indigenous people rights. This is one of the most important problems and most difficult problems to solve globally. The startup of enterprises requires plenty of land. This land needs to be acquired. The process of this land acquisition can often be too messy and it can lead to several effects on the local community, in, including having a negative impact on the local environment and causing the displacement and loss of livelihoods of local communities. Consumer rights and cybersecurity. Consumer protection, giving out right information to public, using the right advertising means and methods, privacy of consumer data, all these can be included in this category. Next, ethical supply chains. Modern supply chains can be increasingly burdensome on the environment, human rights. Hence, maintaining ethical standards at every level of supply chains is very important. For example, very recently, 83 major brands were flagged and accused of sourcing products made by Uyghur minorities in China, including Volkswagen, the car company. These brands started receiving several appeals to ensure that products were not made using forced labor. Right now, it is unclear to me if Volkswagen continues to use forced labor after the passage of Uyghur Forced Labor Disclosure Act in the US Congress. But if they are using forced labor, there is no law in the world that can stop them from using that labor currently. However, ESG rankings can be one of the tools that may disincentivize Volkswagen from using Uyghur labor. Recently, there's been an act in the US Congress that has that has tried to ban products made by Uyghur labor, but I'm not sure if it's passed yet.
All right, governance. G is for governance. So I'm not getting into everything, what consists of governance because I have already explained this in one of the previous slides. I'm just touching on a few broad topics here that you will hear a lot about when you practice in this field. One is diversity and inclusion among employees. So this has become a topic of conversation recently. This also includes diversity of board members. Very recently, Uber was called out for not having diversity amongst its board, so it had to include a lady on their board. The problem here is the uh, the lack of diversity can often be cited as a reason for the aggressive corporate culture that many of these new companies or new startups have. So both diversity and inclusion among employees is very important. Next is executive compensation. There can be conflicting interests if executives are paid merely for the financial performance. One way of adherence to responsible investment and responsible business is by tying the executive compensation to the other bottom lines as well. Remember, I spoke about the second and the third bottom line. So, if you would tie a COO's bonus to the ESG score or the company's rating on some ESG index, such as MSCI or in the ones published by MSCI or Standard and Poor, it's one way of adhering to responsible investment principles. Business codes of conduct. This can include anything from the vision and mission adopted by the company to even the handbook that is given to the employees. So a company should ideally have codified policies for every possible topic they could discuss in basically it should have something like a constitution, and there should be protocol set for relating to every issue of policy, and there should be metrics to ensure the implementation of these policies. Next is shareholder voting rights. It is important that a company maintains democracy within its orders to avoid too much power in the hands of a few powerful executives. For example, the Silicon Valley is notorious for supervoting shares in the hands of some founders. Facebook is an example. This can be harmful for the stability of the company as well as the society at large. I am not sure if you've heard of Theranos. That's one example. So their board was quite weak, but that's not a very good example here. But I would recommend that you read up about that. Again, I won't go into too many details here. That's not the scope of this presentation, but I'm leaving a few additional links in the reading section. So, cross-cutting issues. Most problems in the society are not tabulated in environmental, social, or governance issues. Most problems could cross across categories. Many of these issues, therefore, are known as cross-cutting issues, can be called as cross-cutting issues. Example, the Keystone XL pipeline project in USA, the Lavasa Lake City project in India, etc. I'm explaining the Keystone pipeline project since it's more internationally renowned. The Keystone XL pipeline is a large cross-border pipeline that aims to transport oil from tar sand mines in Canada across the continent to the south of the USA. So, apart from being a major environmental concern because tar sand is known to be a very polluting source of fuel, the project also poses a threat to the environment of indigenous land. There is a threat of oil leaks into water resources close to the pipeline, etc. The project also concerns indigenous tribes in places like North Dakota, where local tribes have raised the issue of the pipeline running through the sacred seals sites. In this case, so this is an intersectional issue. So in this case, the acquisition of land for such projects is questionable since I'm not sure of whether it is even legal to acquire Native American land or something like that. This, so this is an example for cross-cutting issue. It has become a major political issue and therefore it has been subject to frequent withdrawal of permissions to build. For example, Barack Obama revoked the permission to build this project, and when Donald Trump became the president of USA, Mr. Trump, he came back and allowed this pipeline to go through. So it also, apart from raising the cost of the total project and pushing the deadlines further and further, it also raises concerns over corruption. There, there could be corruption. I'm not saying it always does. But in developing countries like India, corruption also becomes a major concern when such projects happen. This project could have also been has also been obviously subject to delays due to lawsuits filed by CS tribes. In this case, the executives of the project can be faulted for not engaging better with local communities and instead using lobbying within law enforcement to ensure police action against protesters. Such conflicts of interest are seen to be a greater degree in crowded countries like India, as I explained. But so that's why I would also recommend that you read the Lavasa Lake City project uh, details also. It will also help you understand the need for ESG integration.
Additional reading.